had 80 different cars, each of them with just one BLM agent as they were evacuating that area before they would release the cattle. We're standing there watching these and counting the different cars going by, all new vehicles. Just the amount of money that they spend, the way they waste money. Of course, it can be done better at the local level. Certainly can't do any worse at the local level, because at the local level, you don't have the Federal Reserve, which is going to allow you to run up a huge tab. You're going to have to pay for it with taxes, or you're going to have to manage it responsibly.
Yeah. Now, it's a standoff. I've got a count of 107 vehicles.
107, okay.
Going on the road.
That's right.
And, the thing of it is all 107 those vehicles were armed with armed army.
Yes.
That always fascinated me.
Absolutely.
Why would the State Highway Patrol allow an army like that onto their highway? And then why would that army be able to pass through the city of Mesquite without, any resistance, through the state of Arizona without any resistance, through the port of entry into Utah without any resistance, and that army disappeared in the state of Utah, and not one media, no question. That army went across the United States without one question asked.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's what we saw. Now, getting back to this bill, as they point out, this is a person from, as the LA Times put it, a nonpartisan think tank, but I think they were pretty partisan. They were complaining about it, saying this goes farther than the most extreme bill we've seen so far. I've seen 37 bills like it in 11 Western states, and they thought this was by far the worst. I thought it was interesting, Mr. Bundy, that they called you, the same person called you a sovereign citizen. You're not a sovereign citizen. That's a very specific label that they try to hang on people to make them dangerous to law enforcement, because they profile people with that label that's put on them. You're talking about sovereign states. You're asking the sheriff and the state to take on their sovereign responsibilities, aren't you?
Well, sure. And when I say sovereign state, what I'm really saying is statehood.
Exactly.
I believe this Nevada does have a statehood status. President Lincoln declared Nevada a state.
Yes.
And when he did that, he didn't declare it a territory. He declared it a state. He took it out of the territory status. Nevada used to be the territory of Nevada of the United States. Well, that status was taken away, and that's where the federal government disposed of the land. When they made the territory a state, they disposed the territory land, and now it's a state, a sovereign state with equal representation as our original 13 states. It has a boundary around it, in other words, a state line around it, and those people in there has their sovereignty.
Yes.
And when I say sovereignty, that means that they can make the rules and regulations, only restricted by the things that the federal government, the Constitution of the federal government said that would remain federal. And one of the things that said to remain federal is that 10 square miles.
Yeah. That's right.
That's
right. You're talking about the 10th Amendment and how the states retain powers under the Constitution. That's the way the Constitution is written. I want to read one more.
All of the powers that wasn't delegated in the Constitution were retained to the state and to its people.
That's right. Absolutely. Let's talk about one more thing here that was brought up. I thought this was kind of interesting. In one of the articles, they had a 8 News reporter asked the Assemblywoman Michelle Fiore, is that how you pronounce her name?
Fiore, yes.
Fiore, yeah, who has put forward this bill. She asked her, she said, could the feds essentially say, I don't care what you have to say as a state because the bill has no teeth? How would that work? Is that of concern of yours? And Michelle said, that's what the feds have been saying. So now we're saying we're tired of that.
Yeah, that's true, and that's exactly what they've been saying ever since statehood.
Yes.
That was 1864, but they also, Nevada passed a Nevada Land Ownership Act in 1976, I believe, and that basically said Nevada owns its land. And of course, the federal government has ignored that for all these years. Now, this bill here has to have teeth. And let me see if I can make a quote here. A bill or a law that has no penalty has no force or value.
Yes.
And that's what's been happening to all of these land bills. They don't put a penalty on there, so there's no force or value.
Yes.
Now, what ought to be put on this, and I don't know whether it'll happen, but I know I dealt with Nye County, Nevada, with their some legislation the county did, and the bill, the work that they did said any person or entity contract with a foreign government dealing with our land, water, and resources, there will be a 5-year jail sentence and a $100,000 fine. Well, now that's got some teeth in it.
Yes, yes. And speaking of that,
you monkey with Nye County's water, or Nye County's land or resources, and you could be 5 years in jail and a $100,000 fine. Now that's got some teeth. Without that phrase in there, the federal government will ignore it.
yes.
And
Yes.
the federal government's not the one that's going to get the penalty. It's the citizen that deals with the federal government. Make contract. Remember what I said? Make contract with dealing with our land and resources.
Now, the only thing,
the guilty one.
well, that sounds like an excellent bill, but in order to bite with those teeth, you've got some teeth in that bill, but to have a bite, you've got to have somebody who's actually going to exercise the teeth. Do you have, and of course, the weak link in that is the sheriff. What's the situation there in Clark County now? Because it was the sheriff that was letting them get away with this.
Well, I'm not sure, because the sheriff has never exercised any power or authority. I'll tell you one thing about the Bundy Ranch in this part of Clark County, and it's been said several times on national TV and media. It says this could be the freest place on earth.
Yes.
And what they're talking about is, hey, we don't have the federal government bothering us. And the county sheriff, he's been basically staying out of the road. We hope he would protect us, and we'd hope that he would get involved if we needed his assistance. But he hasn't been involved, and so we don't really know where he stands.
That's right. And that's the thing that I think was so important when I was there, like I said at the beginning of the interview, to see citizens stand with their neighbor against injustice, against the illegitimate use of force. That was really the original intent of this country, I think, was to have a sheriff who would exercise authority when there was something that was happening in the community that he needed help with. He would get the posse together. That was the community where the power truly resided. And that's what we saw at the Bundy Ranch. There were no shots fired, but people showed that they were determined, that they were not going to back down. And when I think every time we see this happen, the federal government will back down. We've seen this happen now in several states. We've seen them back down from bills that were going to mandate vaccines, that were going to take away our informed consent as citizens and enact a kind of medical tyranny. The people came back in massive amounts, and in North Carolina, as well as in Washington State, other places, they have withdrawn these bills. People can get their freedom back if they won't just accept the tyranny. I really thank you, Mr. Bundy, for really leading that.
I appreciate that, but let me tell you, it's very simple, and I've thought this thing over for 20, 30 years, and I've seen many of these cases you're talking about. There's no time that we, the people, or our county government, or our county sheriff, has ever said no, that the federal government overrode them and got their way.
That's right.
The county sheriff, all he had to do on this Bundy issue was say no.
Yes. That's right.
One word, no, and the Fed would not have run over him. But when we have these governments and these people that won't say no, then, boy, that just gives them the go-ahead to bring their army, do whatever they want to do.
Absolutely. And when the sheriff wouldn't say no, the community stood up and said no, and you led that effort, and you did a wonderful job. We're really thankful that that worked out in a peaceful way, and thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thank you for asking. We still live in the best country in the world with the best Constitution. We really are blessed here in this land.
That's right. We just need to enforce it, don't we? Thank you so much, Mr. Bundy, Cliven Bundy.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, that's it for tonight's news. If you're watching this on YouTube, please consider subscribing to the Alex Jones channel. And if you're watching it on YouTube, please consider supporting our operation with a subscription to Prison Planet TV. Your paid subscription supports our operation, and it allows you to share it with up to 11 other people at the same time, so you all get the news the night that it happens. Well, join us again tomorrow night at 7 Central, 8 p.m. Eastern.
From the water table to our soils to the atmosphere itself, our world is becoming more and more toxic each and every day. But it's not just the air outside that's toxic. Indoor air has been shown to have 2 to 5 times higher concentrations of pollutants than even outdoor air. And most Americans spend 90% of their time inside using toxic chemicals within their homes. There are more than 42 million smokers in the United States. Well over 1,000 types of mold and mildew linked to numerous conditions. And don't forget the fact that 6 million Americans live with pets they're allergic to as well. When I began to research these statistics, it was clear to me it was time to start cleansing my lungs in order to combat the toxic environment that we cannot escape, but that we can fight back against. Made with organic and wild cultivated herbs and manufactured in the USA, the new INFOWARS Life Lung Cleanse is here in a convenient spray bottle that can be brought with you throughout any toxic environment. Now available exclusively at InfoWarsLife.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139.
You are watching the InfoWars Nightly News, which airs 7 p.m. Central at InfoWarsNews.com. And your support is helping us defend liberty worldwide.